Chosen one, I want to ask you something before this transmission goes any further. Have you ever stood in a room where someone was being accused of something and felt, before any verdict was announced, that the accusation was wrong? Not because you knew all the facts, because something in the quality of the person being accused was incompatible with the thing being said about them. That feeling was not sentiment. It was perception. The specific recognition of someone whose essential nature is visible enough that what is being claimed about them simply does not fit what is actually there. What I am about to tell you involves a case, a real one, not in the legal system of any human government. In the oldest judicial architecture that exists, the celestial court that operates in the dimension where the most consequential decisions about human lives are actually made, a case was opened against you. The charges were real. The evidence was extensive. The one presenting the charges is the most experienced accuser in the history of that court, a being who has never lost a case in which the charges were legitimate. The judge reviewed everything, and then he dismissed every charge, not because the evidence was falsified, not because the procedure was flawed, because what the evidence actually proved, when read correctly, was not what the accuser intended it to prove. Subscribe to this channel right now and turn on every notification, because what I am building toward will permanently change how you understand the difference between what has been said about you and what is actually true about you. If you are already subscribed, I want to honor that directly. You keep returning to this channel, and that consistency says something real. Congratulations for being one of the ones who came back. Write 777 in the comments if you have carried the weight of accusations, spoken or unspoken, that you knew at the deepest level were not true about who you actually are. Stay until the very end. The climax of this transmission is what everything else is building toward. Let me begin with what the celestial court actually is, and why what happens there matters for what happens in your visible life. Most people understand justice as a human institution, courts built by governments, laws written by legislatures, verdicts rendered by judges and juries operating within systems that are, at best, approximations of something more fundamental. But the biblical tradition describes something that precedes and supersedes all human legal structures. A court that operates in dimensions that human institutions are themselves imperfect reflections of, where what is actually true about a person is not determined by the quality of their legal representation or the biases of the people judging them, but by the nature of reality itself. Daniel chapter 7 describes it directly. The Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated and the books were opened. The court was seated. The books were opened. This is judicial language. Precise, specific language about a proceeding with procedure and evidence and verdict. Not a metaphor for divine awareness. A description of a process with structure and outcome. And in that court, there is a specific role described throughout Scripture, a prosecuting role, a being whose function is to present the case against. Job chapter 1. The adversary presents himself before the divine counsel, and what he does there is precisely what a prosecuting attorney does. He makes a case. He argues that what appears to be faithfulness is actually conditional, that it would not survive the removal of the conditions that make it easy. Zechariah chapter 3. Joshua the high priest stands before the angel of the Lord, and the adversary stands at his right hand to accuse him. At his right hand, the specific position of the accuser in the ancient Near Eastern legal tradition. This is the court. This is the proceeding. This is the role of the being who built a case against your life. And the judge dismissed every charge. Now let me take you into what the charges actually were and why the dismissal happened. The charges against you were not invented. They were assembled from your actual history. Every failure, every season where you fell short of what you knew you were capable of, every compromise made under pressure that left something behind, every moment where the person you presented to the world was smaller than the person you actually were inside. The accuser is meticulous. He does not fabricate. He does not need to. He works with what is actually there in the record, documented and real. And your record is not clean. You know this better than anyone. The charges were real, but here is what the judge saw when he reviewed them that the accuser did not anticipate. The charges were real, but they were being interpreted through the wrong framework. Let me show you what I mean from the text that contains the heart of this. Zechariah chapter 3 verses 3 and 4. Joshua was dressed in filthy clothes as he stood before the angel. The angel said to those who were standing before him, "Take off his filthy clothes." Then he said to Joshua, "See, I have taken away your sin, and I will put fine garments on you." Filthy clothes. The Hebrew word is tzo. It means excrement covered. This is not polite language for a modest level of impurity. This is the most extreme possible description of contamination, of someone whose condition is as far from presentable as it is possible to be. And the accuser standing at Joshua's right hand had a case built entirely around those clothes. Look at the condition of this person. Look at what they are wearing. Look at the evidence of where they have been and what that says about who they are. The case was not wrong about the clothes. The clothes were exactly what the accuser described. But the judge was not looking at the clothes the way the accuser intended him to look at them. The judge saw something the accuser could not see from his prosecutorial position. He saw that the person inside the filthy clothes was still standing in the court, not performing cleanliness, not pretending the clothes were acceptable, standing, present, in front of the highest authority that exists, in the worst possible condition, without hiding it, and without letting it determine whether he came or not. And the judge said, "Take off the filthy clothes. See, I have taken away your sin." The dismissal was not based on the evidence being wrong. It was based on the evidence being read correctly for the first time. The filthy clothes were not evidence that Joshua was defined by where he had been. They were evidence that Joshua had come anyway, that the condition did not prevent the presence, that something in the essential nature of who he was kept moving toward the right direction, even when the condition gave every reason to stay away. That is not what the accuser's charges said about the clothes, but that is what the judge saw. Let me tell you a story about a trial that turned on the meaning of evidence. There was a case where a prosecutor presented extensive documentation of every failure in a person's life, every decision that did not go the way it should have, every pattern that repeated when it should have been broken, every season where what the person demonstrated about themselves contradicted what they claimed to be. The documentation was accurate. The evidence was real, and the defense said nothing about the accuracy of the evidence, did not challenge a single document, did not dispute a single fact. The defense simply asked the judge to look at one additional piece of evidence that the prosecution had not presented, the date on which each failure was documented, and the pattern that emerged when the failures were placed in chronological order alongside everything else that was happening in that period. The losses, the pressure, the specific weight of circumstances that surrounded each moment where the person fell short. The failures were real, but placed in context, they told a completely different story than the story the prosecution was telling with them. They told the story of someone who kept getting up, who kept returning to the same direction after each fall, who in conditions that produced permanent defeat in most people, continued producing something other than permanent defeat. The judge looked at the full picture, and what the prosecution had assembled as evidence of character failure read, in the full context, as evidence of character. The charges were dismissed, not because the evidence was wrong, because it was being correctly interpreted for the first time. This is what happened in your case. For those who want to understand what the full picture actually shows about who you are at the level the judge was looking at, there is material in the description and pinned comment. The three frequencies within it, 396 Hz, 639 Hz, and 963 Hz, are narrated personally by the Watcher, the same voice you are hearing right now, so when you access the material, you will know exactly who is guiding you through it. A complete ebook and full audiobook are included. Now let me take you into the specific legal principle that produced the dismissal. Romans chapter 8, verse 1. Therefore there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus. No condemnation. The Greek is katakrima. It is judicial language, a verdict, a sentence carried out against someone, the legal consequence of a finding of guilt. No katakrima, not because the charges could not be filed, because the judicial framework within which the charges were being brought has been superseded by a framework in which the charges cannot produce the verdict the accuser is seeking. The accuser operates in a legal framework that says, the evidence of failure produces the verdict of condemnation. The judge operates in a framework that says, the framework itself has changed. The basis on which condemnation was possible has been addressed at a level that precedes the evidence being presented, and charges brought under the old framework cannot produce a verdict in the new one. This is not a technicality. It is the architecture of what actually happened when the case against your life was reviewed. The accuser assembled every piece of evidence correctly, filed every charge that the evidence supported, presented the case with the precision that his millennia of prosecutorial experience produce, and the judge looked at the case and said, "These charges cannot produce the verdict you are seeking. The framework in which they were viable no longer applies to this person. Case dismissed." Now I need to take you into what the dismissal actually produces in your visible life, because the dismissal is not just a legal event in the invisible realm. It has consequences that move in the visible world. Isaiah chapter 54 verse 17. "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is not a promise that no accusations will be made. Accusations will come. They are being made, in the invisible realm and in the visible one. The accuser does not stop filing cases simply because previous cases were dismissed. But the verdict is not available to him, not because the cases are not filed, because the framework in which the verdict he is seeking is possible has been removed from the judicial architecture that governs your life. And the consequences of this in your visible world are specific. The things that were being held in place by the accusations against you, the delays, the closed doors, the sustained resistances that could not be explained by visible circumstances alone, lose their legal foundation when the case is dismissed. Not immediately in every area. The process of consequences following a legal event takes time in any system, but the dismissal has been issued, and everything built on the foundation of charges that are no longer sustainable is in the process of losing its foundation. This is why certain things in your life that have been resistant for long periods are beginning to shift in ways you cannot fully explain. The foundation of the resistance was a case that has been dismissed. Now let me bring you to the climax of everything this transmission has been building toward. Job chapter 42. After the longest trial recorded in the Hebrew Scriptures, after the adversary had been granted permission to test the validity of his own charges by applying everything he had to the target and seeing what the target produced. After all of it, God speaks to Job's friends, the ones who had spent the duration of the trial offering perfectly reasonable theological explanations for Job's condition. He says, "You have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." The friends had the correct theology. They said true things about divine justice and divine sovereignty. Job had spoken what was actually happening in him. The anger, the confusion, the genuine not understanding, the wrestling with what was real rather than the performance of what looked appropriate. And God called Job right, not the correct theology, the honest reality. This is what the judge saw in your case that the accuser could not see. The accuser's case was built on the evidence of imperfection, of failure, of the gap between what you claimed to be and what the record showed. But the judge was reading a different document. He was reading the document of what you did in your most honest moments. Not the moments when you performed faith correctly, the moments when you showed up anyway, when the condition was as bad as the accuser documented and you were present in the court regardless. When you prayed the inarticulate prayer that had no theological correctness in it, but had everything honest in it. When you kept moving in the right direction, when every calculation said you should have stopped. When you remained who you are in conditions that were specifically designed to change you into someone else. That is the document the judge was reading. And the charges built on the other document could not survive contact with the document the judge was actually looking at. Every charge dismissed. Not because you are without failure, because failure is not the defining element of your record. Persistence is. And persistence in the celestial legal framework is not a mitigating factor that reduces the sentence. It is evidence that redefines the category of the case entirely. You are not a guilty person asking for mercy. You are someone whose record, read correctly, shows a nature that the adversary's charges were not built to account for, and the judge read it correctly. Walk forward in the freedom of a case that has been dismissed, not into recklessness. Into the specific, grounded freedom of someone who understands that the legal foundation of what has been resisting them is no longer intact. The charges are gone. The verdict the accuser was seeking is not available, and what was being held in place by the case that no longer exists is beginning to move. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now, because what follows this transmission is the next piece of what the dismissed case means for the specific areas of your life where the resistance is already beginning to shift. Together, we are stronger.